Hey guys! So my apologies for the quality of the last video. I I used my point and shoot camera and I thought that the quality would be a lot better than it was, and so that was a little disappointing. But I promise that I will try to make the quality better and better as we go along and as I get the hang of this. So yeah. I want to talk about what I read in August. I read 6 books this month, and I'm pretty proud of that. I read somewhere that the average adult reads about 20 books a year, so the fact that I've already doubled that, I'm pretty impressed with myself. There are some people who read like 400 books, but whatever, they're crazy and they don't have a life, I believe. Zero, or they spend a lot of time in the car, because I used to read a lot more when I was in the car, driving and commuting, because audiobooks, hello. But anyway, let's talk about what I read in August. The first book I read in August is the end of July, beginning of August. It was If I Stay by Gayle Forman, and I'll put all the links below. If I Stay was the second book that I read by Gayle Forman. The first one I read was Just One Day, and I loved that book. So I went into this read with very high expectations, and I don't know, it was okay. It was an interesting topic. It was an interesting way to address the topic. Essentially, the book is about this 17-year-old girl named Mia, and she gets in this car accident, and she's in a coma, and she basically has to decide, am I going to live or am I going to die? It's up to me, and I have to make that decision. And she just goes through her life and tries to make that decision, and in the end she does make a decision, and I won't tell you what that is, but it's heavy. I would not want to make that decision ever, 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 ever. It's definitely hard. So I give it 3 stars out of 5, and I think, I don't know, I enjoyed reading it, but I just don't think it was as good as Just One Day, and I think that was the problem. I feel like if I would have gone into this book first before I read Just One Day, I would have liked it more, maybe. But as it is, it's just, I just kind of liked it. I'll definitely try to see the movie at some point, probably when it's in Redbox, because let's be honest, when you have a baby, it's like going to the movies is it doesn't happen. So there's that. The next book I read, this one you might not be interested in unless you work in education, or you plan on working in education, or you have a child, or maybe if you plan on having children, and I don't know. But it's called Teaching Montessori in the Home, and deals with the preschool years. It's by Elizabeth G. Hainstock and Lee Davis. And my daughter is almost 1, and eventually I would really like to make our interactions a little more educational. You know, right now we're reading together, and we're working on shapes and fitting things into you know, like a shape ball and all that fun stuff. But obviously, you know, as she gets older, I do want to help her develop a love for learning, like both her father and myself have. So I thought this was a good book to pick up and get some basic ideas. This book seems to focus on developing like basic skills and getting to use all 5 of your senses, which is really, really great. I think that's a fun and great way to learn, and I definitely will incorporate some of those things as she gets older. Right now, a lot of the activities she's a little too young for, but it's never too early to start thinking about how you want to educate your child, and you know, all that fun stuff. So it was a good book. I gave it a 4 out of 5. There were some things that I didn't completely agree with, but I will definitely borrow from that and maybe some other ideologies at some point. So we'll see. After that, I read, I think, one of the best books I've read all year. And it took me a long time to actually decide to read this book, because I figured that it was just overhyped. And typically, with all those books that everyone's praising, I find myself not liking it as much as everyone else. I think it's because all those expectations are building and building and building, and you think it's going to be amazing. And so I was a little hesitant, but Me Before You by Jojo Moyes is a fantastic read. It is so good. It's about this woman named Louisa Clark, and her life is kind of going nowhere, and she's working all these temp jobs because she got laid off from her cafe job, basically because the cafe closed. So she's just trying all these different things, and she finds herself working as a helper for a quadriplegic, I believe it is. It's not a paraplegic, I think it's quadriplegic. But his name is William, and he doesn't want to live, basically. And so the whole idea of the book, there's this place, I think, in Switzerland where you can go, and it's an assisted suicide, and that's where he wants to go. But he has given his parents, I think it's 3 months, just to be with him, and she makes it her mission to try to change his mind and help him appreciate living again. And it was so good, and I love both of those characters so much. And it was the kind of book where you finish it before going to bed and you wake up the next day and you just really want to check in with the characters, and then you just feel so depressed when you realize they're not real and the book is over. And it's just hard. It was hard to move on after Me Before You. I was definitely in like a reading slump and depression after that, but luckily I managed to get my hands on Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. This is the 3rd book I've read by her, and she does not disappoint. I think that I really loved Fangirl, but I kind of think that I love this more than Fangirl, to be honest. This book is about a guy who, well, it's 1999, first off, and this newspaper gets internet for the first time, and so they're monitoring the emails and making sure that no one's abusing things, they're being productive, yada yada yada. So his job, he sits there at night and he reads through the flagged emails to make sure they're not discussing anything inappropriate and they're actually doing work-related things, and he's supposed to send them warnings and that kind of stuff. And he comes across these emails between these 2 colleagues, Beth and Jennifer, and he starts reading like almost all their emails, and he feels like they're friends, which is, I think that's how some people feel, just watching YouTube videos and just getting to know celebrities via, tabloids. You start to feel like you know these people and that you're invested in them, and they have no idea who you are. And it's that kind of that situation. But along the way, he finds himself falling in love with Beth, and he kind of just comes into his own and just grows up a lot, and it just was so good. And it kind of reminded me, my favorite movie is You've Got Mail, and it feels reminiscent of that. My one complaint, and this is very, very silly, there is a reference to Bridget Jones' Diary with Colin Firth, and I'm pretty sure that didn't come out in 1999. I think it came out like in 2000 or 2001. So I don't know. It's just a little thing, but it bothered me a little. I spent some time on IMDb, and it said 2001, so I don't know. Just fact check, maybe. I don't know. The last book I read was my least favorite of all of the books that I read in August, and this book was One Perfect Day by Diane Burke and her son Steve Orlandi. And basically, it's a memoir. Diane got pregnant at 18, and she really wanted to keep the baby, but the father wasn't interested, and her mother thought it was a terrible idea. So, excuse me, she gave the baby up for adoption, and it's Steve and Diane take turns writing chapters, and they talk about, what it was like for him growing up as an only child and knowing he was adopted, and what it was like for her to move on with her life and then have other children and raise them, and all the things she went through. It was definitely interesting. What I didn't like, it was only 192 pages, but it felt like the story could have been half of that, because by the end, it just felt very repetitive and redundant and just, I don't know. I think it could have just been a feel-good story on the news, to be honest. I didn't love it. I liked the topic, but I didn't really super love the book, and I don't know. I really did like the first half a lot. So I'm not sure what happened, but it lost me along the way. So that is my August wrap up. I'm going to come back and film another video in just a few minutes and talk about what I'm going to be reading in September and what I'm currently reading. And yeah, that's that. This video is already too long. 9 minutes. Yeesh. Okay, well, we'll see ya.